Okay, welcome. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Lisa Millman, and I am a specialist here at the Parent Resource Center, and we are excited to have many people here to help with special education updates. Our two presenters today are Mary Beth Harrison Cunningham and Susan Kannegeeser. So I'm going to give it now to Mary Beth.
Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us tonight. Susan and I are really excited to be here with you this evening. Just a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to let Susan introduce herself. Again, my name is Mary Beth Harrison Cunningham. I'm the manager at the Parent Resource Center. And I am a career special educator and have served in many roles in Fairfax County Public Schools. I've served as a procedural support liaison, a special education department chair, and an assistant principal for 8 years at a comprehensive services site before coming to the Parent Resource Center. So again, I love special education. I love talking about it. And we're here to share some new things with you. And I'm going to let Susan introduce herself.
Hi, good evening. I'm Susan Kannegeeser. I'm one of the procedural support liaisons. Mary Beth and I have a very similar history. I'm a special education teacher with Fairfax County, and I was the special education department chair as well as an assistant principal in a comprehensive services site before becoming a procedural support liaison. So thank you very much for being here tonight.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Just wanted to talk a little bit about our agenda this evening. We are going to be talking a little bit about the Special Education Enhancement Plan. I'm sure a lot of you have been hearing about it. And we are going to cover two specific goals this evening, both the one around communication and special education processes, just to give you a little bit of an update. And then we are going to talk a little bit about just some different things that will be happening with regard to the IEP process, and spend some time talking about the least restrictive environment. And certainly at the very end, we want to be able to provide all of you some additional resources and information that might be helpful to you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So first up is the Special Education Enhancement Plan. And I know that a lot of you have been hearing a lot about this, and certainly would like to perhaps know a little bit more. I do want to call your attention to the fact that the draft can be viewed on the FCPS website. And we're going to give you links to that this evening, so you'll be able to see everything and read certainly what is posted and what is the most up to date. But a lot of you are aware that, of course, our school division has been developing a special education enhancement plan to really coincide and going along with the current strategic plan that the school division is developing. And this is really just to support and enhance the outcomes for students with disabilities, and certainly to be reflective of the AIR report and the VDOE audit, and FCPS taking that very seriously and wanting to make sure that we are doing the very best for our special education students and taking that new information into account as this plan is being developed. So I do want to talk about one of the draft goals, which is around communication. And we know that that has been something that families have really been asking for. And so I wanted to just share with you the goal, which is FCPS will establish and implement systems for communication between staff and families to foster improved relationships and increase achievement for students with disabilities. And part of that communication goal is to really talk about how is communication going to be accessible. And so I want to spend a little bit just talking about that. There has been a lot of discussion around accessibility to information for families. And so wanting to make sure that families understand that there has been a lot of discussion around making sure materials are accessible in families' home languages. That certainly our website as well has translation buttons, and that actually is the translation buttons have actually been changed a little bit. So that information will be coming out about where those new translation buttons will be placed on the website, but they are still available. And families will have the opportunity to translate any information posted on the public website in their home language. Also, there's also voiceover capabilities on our pages as well. So families would be able to listen to the information that is printed and posted on our website. Also, there will be equitable access to interpretation services. We know that families who do not have English as their first language do need access to interpretation services, and that will continue. And especially for any meeting that a family would attend, interpretation services will be available. The next bullet, I think, is very important to a lot of our families, that the IEP and Section 504 documents will be translated. And that is something that I know that the school division is working on very seriously in making sure that those documents are available to families in their home language so that they can become and continue to be active participants in their child's IEPs and their IEP programming, and want to make sure that families are understanding of everything that's in that IEP. And so communication will come out later as this starts to roll out. So please stay tuned as to how this will be rolled out in the division. And then also we want to make sure that communication is timely and consistent, and that is something that is very important as part of this draft goal in communication. We want to make sure that this timely and consistent communication is coming from central office as well as from schools. And so that is a very important part of this draft goal for the school division. And we want to make sure that we are setting in place protocols and procedures that make this communication, again, as timely and consistent as possible for our families. The other goal that we wanted to chat about tonight is around special education processes. And this goal is to foster increased outcomes for students with disabilities. FCPS will implement special education processes and procedures that ensures compliance with federal and state special education regulations. And so, so a lot of you are aware, and some of you may not be aware, that professional development for school staff has really been it's been continuous and has been updated as things have come out. Our school staff are working very hard and are accessing professional development that is offered by central office staff on a regular basis. This is something that will continue to grow. Also wanted families to know that our staff are getting this professional development depending on what teachers and administrators and other school staff supporting special education students might need to know in moving forward. Also, there are family education opportunities. I always like to put a plug in for the Parent Resource Center here. The Parent Resource Center does provide a lot of family education and updated information for families. And so would certainly encourage families to take a look at what's happening on our website with regard to webinars that we're providing. But then also stay tuned to what's happening in your child's school, because your school may be offering a lot of good information about what's happening at your child's school, what's happening with regard to how families can support their children at schools. And so we're hoping to have schools continue to develop out those opportunities for families so they can become engaged and know how they can support their children in their schools and certainly in their academic, behavioral, and social emotional learning. And then also we want to make sure that we have some more enhanced kind of family documentation that is really there to reflect your input as a family member supporting your child. And so, you know, we want families to be able to provide their input, and that can be done prior to the IEP meeting using the IEP Form 102, but it can also be in an email to the school. It can be a phone call. It can be whatever. It can be, you know, a verbal documentation, something that you want to share with the school, but it can also happen during the meeting, and so wanting to make sure that families understand and you all know that your input is incredibly important. We want to have that as part of the IEP meeting, and so whether you provide it before the meeting or during the meeting, or if you think of something even after the meeting and want to share that with the team, we want to make sure that you know that you can do that. We also want to make sure that there's, you know, two-way communication between families and the school. And so, you know, if you as a family have had private testing done or private evaluation done, you know, sharing those reports is really important. It provides information about the whole child that can be from clinicians or therapists or other types of providers that you may be using to support your child outside of the school day. We want to make sure that you're hearing about your child and how they are at home. You know, we want to know about your child. We want to know what concerns you have. And we would love to know what your suggestions might be around goals and accommodations and what you see the needs of your child being. It is so important that we get that information and we're working as a collaborative team to come up with the best IEP, the best program for your child. And certainly, I would encourage families, I would encourage you to take time to reflect on your input. What do you want the IEP team to know about your child? And, you know, start making some notes, start making some questions that you may have, and have that ready for the IEP team, whether you choose to send that ahead of time or whether you choose to bring that up during the meeting. And I think that this really helps all members of the team, again, understand the information that you would like to have them know about your child. And therefore, it becomes, again, a very collaborative process. And honestly, really helps with communication between family and school. I did want to also highlight here that IEP drafts and draft evaluation reports will be provided at least 2 business days in advance so that you have that time to reflect on the information that the school has drafted, and will be able to offer questions, be able to offer other considerations as you take that information in. And so with that, I'm actually going to turn things over to Susan.
So the information I will share highlights how the enhancement plan's goals that Mary Beth shared can be included in the IEPs. So the present level of academic achievement and functional performance, or PLAAFP, is a statement is a key part of your student's IEP. The information documented on the PLAAFP needs to be written in a clear, explicit manner so parents or guardians and school staff can understand the information. The PLAAFP information and data should cover all of the areas of development where the student may need support. This information will help you and the staff talk about the impact your student's disability has on his or her ability to learn and participate in school activities that include students without disabilities. Information on the PLAAFP needs to come from a variety of sources, which includes information shared by parents or guardians, as well as school staff. The date for teams to start using the PLAAFP page in the IEP has not been determined as of yet, but it should be coming during the 23-24 school year. So what is the PLAAFP? The PLAAFP is a summary of formal and informal assessments that identify a student's interests, preference, strengths, and areas of need. The team will consider information about academic, communication, behavior, and social, emotional, and personal management skills. Here are some examples of each. Academic skills may include areas such as reading, writing, or math. Examples of communication skills may address pragmatics, articulation, or fluency. Behavior or social emotional skills may be a student's ability to work or play cooperatively with peers, follow directions, advocate for oneself, or regulate emotions. And examples of personal management skills may include taking care of one's personal needs, the ability to organize materials, or just manage time. Assessment results should be written so that they can be understood by parents and guardians, as well as school staff. Data reported should include the name of the assessment or the assessment type and the day it was administered. We want to highlight key points such as strengths, needs, or unanticipated findings. When we're writing the information on the PLAAFP, we also want to avoid jargon. Again, we need to be clear so everyone understands what's written. And while reporting scores are important, there should be some context to help everyone understand the meaning behind the score, such as maybe a grade equivalency. What information should be on the PLAAFP? These are some examples of information that teams should include on the PLAAFP. The PLAAFP will be individualized for each student, so some of these categories may or may not apply to your student. These are some additional areas that could be documented on the PLAAFP. IEP team members need to consider all of the information shared by parents or guardians and document any requests made and the staff's response to these requests. Parent information, again, can be provided verbally or in writing. As Mary Beth shared, we currently use the IEP Form 102 or the Parent Information Form. This form should be provided to you when you receive the notice of the IEP meeting. If you have additional information to share that's in writing, you may want to consider sharing that a few days ahead of the meeting so the team can be well read and knowledgeable about your reports. Some information you might want to share, if available, might include medical information, private testing, information from private providers such as a therapist or a tutor, or it just may be information that you want to share verbally at the meeting. And again, any information that's documented on the PLAAFP should be provided with the IEP draft at least 2 business days prior to the meeting. There are a few additional sections of the PLAAFP that we will discuss during the meeting. During the meeting, these areas will be discussed as well as documented. Any proposed assessments that FCPS proposes, we would need your written consent to complete. Qualifications for AIM Virginia and ESY will also be reviewed and documented. If a student has a limited English proficiency or is an English language learner, his or her English proficiency level will also be documented, and the team will discuss any accommodations required. For students who have been found eligible due to an other health impairment or OHI eligibility, the team will document the medical condition that was used on the OHI basis for committee decision or BCD at eligibility. For high school students, we'll also document any of the graduation requirements that have been completed or need to be completed and determine if there are any accommodations required to meet those graduation requirements. Another new page that's coming to the IEP sometime during the 23-24 school year is the meeting minutes. Meeting minutes will be completed during the meeting. School staff will complete the meeting minutes, and this form will be provided to parents or guardians when the IEP is complete. It is a summary of the discussion, and it's a summary of the information used by the school staff to make the IEP proposal. Meeting minutes will be the IEP 224 form, and it will be blank until the meeting occurs. What will school teams include in the meeting minutes? These are some examples of information that staff will document during the meeting. Meeting minutes are not a word-for-word transcript of the meeting. The minutes will summarize the topics that were discussed. The summary will be written in a clear and concise way to provide details on the discussion as well as the proposal. The meeting minutes will also capture parent or guardians' questions, thoughts, comments, and/or requests, and document the staff's response or input to the questions or the request. The information documented on the meeting minutes must match what is in the final IEP proposal. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the least restrictive environment, or LRE. This is currently part of our IEP, and we're just going to continue discussing how important it is, as well as it aligns with the enhancement plan to look at FCPS's inclusive practices for students. During the IEP meeting, the IEP team will discuss and identify the LRE for each student. The LRE is an individualized decision, and parents and guardians are part of that discussion and decision-making process. The LRE statement on the IEP, again, will be clearly written and provide a rationale for that decision. As part of the definition, it talks about supplementary aids and services. This means the aids, services, and/or other supports that are provided in a regular education classroom or other education-related settings, such as extracurricular or non-academic settings, to enable students with disabilities to be educated with students without disabilities to the maximum extent possible. Supplementary aids and services can be accommodations or modifications. They can be an accommodation or modification to the curriculum or the manner in which the content is presented or how a student's progress is monitored. Additionally, these supplementary aids and services can include direct services and supports to a student, as well as support and training for school staff who work with the student. Determining what constitutes an appropriate supplementary aid and service for a particular student is made on an individual basis during the IEP meeting. What is a general education setting? The general education setting usually refers to a general education classroom, the cafeteria, the gym, the computer lab, etc., where students in these settings are primarily students without disabilities. Specialized instruction can be provided in the general education setting. To access general education settings sometimes requires accommodations or additional supports for our students. That is why the team will discuss what is needed for your student to be able to access a general education setting. What is a special education setting? The special education setting refers to a special education teacher's classroom or an instructional space outside of the general education classroom. Sometimes these services include small groups or one-on-one services with students with disabilities. And sometimes there are small groups that may have some general education students who are receiving a targeted intervention. For our students with disabilities, these services that they receive in a special education setting will be clearly documented within their IEP. During an IEP meeting, the team, staff, parents, and guardians will consider a variety of questions and factors when determining what is the best LRE for a student. These are some questions to think about to help the team make individualized decisions for your student. Please know that LRE can change based on a student's need. So each year, the IEP team will need to meet, discuss the strengths and needs of each student, and determine the most appropriate LRE. If at any time during the year, a parent or a guardian or the school staff have new information or feel a need to call a meeting to discuss the LRE, that can be done through an IEP meeting. Mary Beth. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about resources for families. And I think a couple of people in the chat have asked about access to the slides. And so we are absolutely willing to provide the slides to you just so you have this information. As I move through the resources, all of the resources that are included in the presentation are hyperlinked. So when you get the copy of the slides, you'll be able to go directly to that page on the website, or so you'll be able to access additional information if you're looking for it. But I did want to spend a couple minutes talking about, how do you prepare for an IEP meeting? What materials, what information might a family want to bring into an IEP meeting that would be beneficial for everyone? And so I know a lot of families have done binders. And so this may be something that you might want to consider as either if you're just starting in the process of having your child receive special education services, or if you've had a child in special education services for a while. And I'm sure a lot of you that are here today probably are already doing this, but just wanted to give this as a reminder or give information to a family who maybe hasn't had thought about doing this for their IEP meetings. So, it's always great to start off by having, school records available. What things have you kept about your child? Maybe previous, years report cards. If you are a family that has moved around a bit, having school records from previous school divisions that your child has attended is always great, because what it does is it provides an opportunity to see a sequence, to see kind of a chronology of the services and support that your child has received over time. Schoolwork samples are great to have, just to, if you're talking about a certain goal and you're looking at from when your child started in September, and maybe you're having an annual IEP meeting in April or May. And it's great to be able to look at work samples across the school year to help in kind of that data dialogue that you're having with the IEP team about how your child is performing and how they might be meeting their goals. Certainly, if your child has medical concerns, having the medical records information available, especially if your child, is receiving services under another health impairment, having those updated medical records is really important. And certainly as you continue to gather updated medical records, sharing that with your IEP team, it's often essential in helping, again, to provide information that explains the whole child, that we're seeing all sides of your child and how maybe some of the medical pieces are impacting their school performance. Certainly keeping track of any of the evaluations that your child has had throughout their career is greatly important. And I share that for some of our families who may have children transitioning out of high school and moving on to college or other educational or work opportunities, that keeping those evaluations is really great, because sometimes colleges and other educational opportunities, and even as you're working with public agencies post-secondary, having that information available at your fingertips, those evaluations, is really key in helping your child get the supports that they need even post-secondary. Any correspondence that you have with the school or school staff or other members of the school community, that's great to keep, and just so you have a record of maybe what some questions you have had asked, or information from your child's teacher that you've corresponded about, updates around classroom performance or behavior supports or social emotional learning opportunities. It's great to keep that information there. Certainly a copy of your procedural safeguards. I know that you're always offered a copy when you attend your child's IEP. Having that is something to refer to. I would also say here, if you don't have a copy of the Fairfax County Public Schools Special Ed Parent Handbook, I would highly recommend that you have a copy. We actually have copies at the Parent Resource Center. If you would like to get a copy of that, you also can find it on the website. So that is a wonderful document that you can refer to when you might have additional questions that you want to look up. Certainly having your child's current IEP is valuable as you start to think about the school year, think about other questions you may have, think about an upcoming reevaluation meeting or an annual IEP meeting or an addendum meeting, having that current IEP available. And certainly, if you'd like to use the parent information sheet that we've referred to a couple of times tonight, please do so. Use that sheet. If you prefer to document things differently, that's great. But anything that you might be able to provide to the IEP team about your thoughts and concerns and wishes and hopes for your children, having that available, and even adding to it as the year progresses, or things might change. Having that available is certainly really important as part of your communication with the IEP team. So, as I said, I just wanted to share a few additional resources. Again, when you get a copy of these slides, these are all hyperlinked. So when you get it, what will happen is Lisa, who is the moderator for this session this evening, she will be sending out, when she sends out the link to the recording of tonight's webinar, she'll also send out a copy of the slides to you. So when you get them, you'll just easily be able to click on the hyperlink and get more information. So just to see here, we have several handbooks here, as well as, again, the link to the special education enhancement plan. So the parent handbook, the twice exceptional handbook, the dyslexia handbook, all of those are available on our website, as well as if you wanted a hard copy of the special ed parent handbook, we do have them at the Parent Resource Center in both English and Spanish. There is information around, of course, extended school year, and we know that is people were already having those discussions, and I know that there's a lot of information on the website already. Certainly, if you all are having your compensatory services meetings, there is information also located on the website. And certainly, if you're looking to contact any of the procedural support liaisons, you'll be able to see those online and be able to find which procedural support liaison would support your pyramid, your school.
So Mary Beth, can I just jump in for a second? I know,
Yes.
Just to put a plug in for the procedural support liaisons, if any family feels that they need additional support at an IEP meeting, sometimes it's helpful to have a procedural support liaison attend the meeting to help facilitate the conversation, to make sure that the parent's voice and the parent input is captured along with the school team. Or if you have questions about anything special ed related that you're not sure the school team is providing you with the information in a way that you understand it, please reach out to your procedural support liaison. There's one for each pyramid.
Susan, thank you. And then just some additional resources. The Office of Due Process and Eligibility is there to answer any of your questions. Also, that you may have. We have information, of course, on our Office of Special Education Instruction. There's information about just the special education process and everything that happens as part of finding a child eligible and even continued eligible for special education. For some of you that may not be aware, there is an advisory committee for students with disabilities. They meet the second Wednesday of every month. There's usually advertisement around that. If you're unsure when they meet or what time they meet, please do reach out to the Parent Resource Center. We're happy to let you know. I usually attend those meetings and provide a PRC update. But the advisory committee is an advisory committee that is established by the school board. It is something that the state actually requires that every school system have. And this is an opportunity to meet with people who are working together to provide input to the school board every year around services for students with disabilities. Would also like to draw your attention to the Special Education Conference, which is happening on April 29th this year. It is a virtual event, and that will be happening from 9 to 12:30 that day. It is a Saturday, and the Special Education Conference website is updated with information around our 4 guest speakers, and we're very, very excited to present to you some of these really amazing people this year. And then certainly the Parent Resource Center is also available to you. And we would love to work with you if you have continued questions, need resources for your family or for your child. Let us know how we might be able to help you. All right, so we will have some time for some Q&A. This is Susan's and my contact information. If you, again, have any other questions, please do contact us. If you need anything, we are really here to support you. And so with that, I think we are ready.